Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome in. The Big 12 is open for business. This is the best Big 12 podcast on planet Earth, open for business. I am your host, John Kurtz. Thank you for joining me tonight. Let's ask the question, friends. Is the Big 12 a two-bid league? Was damage done this weekend to the bid for the Big 12 to become a two-bid league in the college football playoff? Lots of projections, some of them pretty wild, some of them very exciting. And if you're in the ACC, none of them are good. Okay. We're going to break it down all on the show tonight. The ACC is in trouble. I will tell you that much. Things are not going well. I had a great time hanging out at a sports bar with a buddy last night, watching the end of the Virginia game and watching the end of the Cal Louisville game. And I don't say that, ACC, to dunk on you. It was just like those were two fun endings to watch. Okay. It was a good evening of college football, but those are not good results for the ACC. And how about we got the AP poll? I've got my power rankings to drop on you. I've got to sort of amend and correct something I said in the immediate aftermath of the Texas Tech BYU game last night, which was, guys, I said, watch out, BYU could drop to like 14. I didn't even think about the fact that if I were talking about the college football playoff rankings, that would mean they were below Utah. Is that something we need to worry about, that BYU could drop below Utah? Let's discuss, okay? Let's discuss that tonight. Thank you, as always. Those of you who are filing in, please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel. That stuff really helps me if you're listening on an audio platform. If you rate and review, that is huge as well. So I appreciate everybody who does that. It helps more people find the show. Of course, I have the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. To subscribe to that, 5,400 plus Big 12 fans subscribe already. And at ofbnews.com or clicking the link in the description of the video, you can get signed up as well. It's totally free, comes to your inbox twice per week. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo, if you want to drop me a line there. I will kick off the next show with your question or comment. Of course, if you're in the chat tonight, blow it up. But if you want to guarantee that you make it on the show, click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat. Appreciate everybody who can support that way. Totally cool if not. Just do the free stuff, like, subscribe, and subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Let's start real quick with Jacob, or rather, we're going to get to the Jacob. Gil, who is chiming in on Venmo. I appreciate you, Gil. Thank you very much. Gil asks about the Heisman Trophy. He says, I would love to see Jacob Rodriguez as a Heisman candidate, even though Manti Te'o, Aaron Donald, and Ndamukong Suh never won. In your opinion, could anyone else in the Big 12 win the Heisman? Who are the potential candidates? Well, I would say this about, I guess let's take it in reverse order. Big 12 candidates, honestly, outside of Jacob Rodriguez, like David Bailey at Texas Tech, I think would be probably at this point next in line, because if you think about just who's having an impact on games, like who is wrecking games, David Bailey is the guy that totally wrecks games, man. He makes it very difficult to game plan for anything against that Texas Tech defense. Now, so much of it is that Romello Heights on the other side, Jacob Rodriguez is back there in the linebacking core right there. There are a number of things here at play, but David Bailey is the best pass rusher in the country, bar none, and that deserves mention in the Heisman Trophy race. Other than that, like Brendan Sorsby, I think before the Utah game, Brendan Sorsby was on the fringes. I would say was on the fringe of the Heisman discussion. Obviously, he had a bad game, completed 33% of his passes at Utah. That's going to knock you down quite a bit. So he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to get back in that discussion. I definitely don't think anybody is going to win the Heisman from the Big 12 this year. But those would be, I think, your three that, maybe those guys will get some votes. Jacob Rodriguez, the momentum is starting to pick up for that. Holly Rowe was playing into the Jacob Rodriguez Heisman conversation after the game when she was interviewing him. Texas Tech has done a good job of just pushing that themselves, like the fan base and school. So I do think that has a chance to, I don't know that like he's going to be Manti Te'o and get an invite to New York or anything, but maybe Jacob Rodriguez could push into like the top 5, depending on what happens with Tech the rest of the year. I mean, I assume they're going to make the Big 12 championship game, but we shall see. UCF and West Virginia coming up. So it's a good question, Gil. I appreciate you, my friend. don't think the Big 12 is going to go back-to-back, unfortunately, on Heisman's after Travis Hunter won it last year. Okay. I want to talk real quick about Texas Tech before I get into this discussion about is the Big 12 a two-bid league or not. All right. So Texas Tech did one huge thing for the Big 12 yesterday, culminating what they have done this year. And it's going to make a huge difference in the Big 12's prospects this season as opposed to what happened last year. So Tech gave the Big 12 a huge boost in one way, and it's something that did not happen at all last year. All right. It's a huge credit, first of all, to Joey McGuire for keeping Texas Tech. I was thinking about this today, for keeping Texas Tech as focused as he did throughout everything that happened this past week. Because as I'm reflecting on this week and this game, obviously it wasn't like a knockdown, drag out, classic game that you would have loved to have had, that everybody was trying to tune into. You didn't get that. You got Texas Tech crockpotting somebody again. Shout out to the solid verbal, just crushing them over the course of time. And in the end, it was not a competitive game at all. But it was a great showcase for Texas Tech. Like the fans that were there, that were getting a lot of love, obviously from game day. But like if you're a Josh Pate fan who, he's approaching 500,000 followers on YouTube. It's the biggest digital platform, I think, in the sport right now. He was there posting a lot about it. Tons of people got a real intro to Lubbock, and it was just rave reviews from how Texas Tech supported that team. And first of all, it's a great thing for throwing it in the face of anybody who's going to talk about the Big 12. Like, look, there are great fan bases, great schools that are really about the fabric of the sport here. So kudos to Texas Tech for that. It turned into this wonderful showcase for them and their defense. I would also say the Tech defense lived up to the hype 110%. And anybody watching that game is going to come away being like, okay, that's a potential national championship caliber defense. You don't have to believe Tech is a national championship caliber team. We can have that debate, but that's a national championship caliber defense for sure. And to live up to all the hype, man, that is not easy. And this is where like some of the stuff with Texas Tech can get a little twisted, where it's like everyone's like, they just threw a bunch of money at this problem. I mean, okay, you can do that, but you also have to be smart in the way you build your roster. And I've talked a lot about that, but it's also like just a coach that builds a culture. And I think it's clear that Joey McGuire can build a really good culture. And you have good culture when like the entire college football world centers on your campus and your team for the first time in 15 plus years, right? And you just handle it like it's nothing. You go out and play one of your better games of the season, if not your best game of the season, certainly in the conversation for that, just no problem at all. I mean, you had people watching your practice all week. I was seeing like videos of that, of the College Game Day crew in at Texas Tech's practice during the week. Like they were going after practice. They're going to Tech fans. I'm spacing on the name of the area where all the kids were lined up. Anyway, my apologies on that. But you're going out there and like hanging out with all the kids that are camped out, playing video games with them and stuff. That's not a normal week. Like that's you would think a lot of pressure. It just didn't matter, dude. It didn't matter. Joey McGuire had those guys focused. That is a focused team, and or they're just so talented that it doesn't matter. And either way, that's a really good answer to have to the problem. Like even if there is a bit of distraction, you're just talented enough to overcome that. They've had games this year, Houston, rather, where it didn't feel like they were all that sharp, maybe not all that focused, and it doesn't matter. I mean, they crockpot you, man. By the end, you're totally cooked, and that's what they did at Houston. Obviously, it's what they did to BYU. Now, what they have done for the Big 12 is give the league a giant shot of credibility, assuming that they don't lose to UCF or West Virginia. Okay, now I am saying that understanding this is college football. We've seen a lot of really crazier things. West Virginia fans, speaking of, could definitely tell you about a crazier loss that they've seen in college football history than Texas Tech slipping up and losing one of these last couple of games, okay? So, Tech, don't make me look silly here, especially after I just talked about how focused you were with the entire world focused in on you and a program that is not used to getting that kind of love and respect and adoration, okay? But if Texas Tech does get to the Big 12 championship game, at least plays a good game in the Big 12 championship game, they have restored a different level of credibility to the Big 12 this year than what we've had in the past. Because right now, I think a lot of the prevailing narrative in college football after this week is kind of like, hey, we've got a tier of like 7 or 8 legitimate bona fide playoff teams. I've seen this talking point a lot. Hey, beyond that, we're going to fill out the rest, 9 through 12, right? They will be in a playoff, but are they really like playoff caliber teams? I think the feeling is there's like 8 that are in that group right now. Texas Tech is definitively one of them. They are definitively in that group, and that was not a part of the conversation at all last year for the Big 12. So that is a really good positive thing that the league has this. At this time, it is really easy to forget. I was looking through some of my old notes from last year. As we were getting to the middle of November last year, the conversation was we were having to defend here on this channel the Big 12's honor in like, wait, hey, could there be 2 G5 teams that get in? And 2 G5 teams could actually get in and keep the Big 12 champion out of the playoff picture entirely? Like that, we were having that conversation. Okay. This year, it's like everybody knows. Okay, yeah, Texas Tech is a playoff team. After this week, it's like, all right, for sure. There's no doubt left there. Texas Tech is a playoff team. Okay. They got to take care of their business for sure. Joey McGuire, I'm sure, would hate this segment. They got to take care of their business, but Tech is a playoff team. That helps the league a bunch, especially when the ACC is scuffling as much as they are right now, right? And even like, the Big Ten looking like a 3-bid league. I guess maybe 4. Maybe some are going to think USC climbs in there. But it's been pretty good for the Big 12 in terms of where they stand right now, based on the strength of you need a big boy that everybody looks at and like, yeah, that's a definitive playoff team. I think that group right now, if you're wondering, well, who are the 8 teams, John? I mean, I think it's Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas Tech, Oregon. Okay. That would be the 8. And beyond that, you're starting to get into teams that are flawed, teams that have 2 losses, a big group there, of which BYU and Utah, I think, definitely belong in the discussion. I don't think many people are really denying Tech being in that group at this point. There was like a little bit, I saw one guy who covers Oklahoma and Texas being like, both of these teams are bad. There's no way these teams are the number 7 and 8 teams in the country. I mean, you got like a little bit of that, but I don't think from anybody serious. And how could you, after you watch Tech's defense, man, just it passes the eye test, regardless of what you think about the conference. Oh, the Big 12, G5 conference, whatever. If you're going to be a hater, regardless of what you think about the conference, the Texas Tech defense passes the eye test. There's just simply no denying that. And they delivered on everybody vouching for them throughout the week, because to me, it felt like this week was a lot about the big guns in the college football world. Brees Davis, Kirk Herbstreit, game day crew, Chris Fowler, Josh Pate, anybody with a big national platform telling you how good the Tech defense is. And then the Tech defense looked as good, if not better, when they actually went out there and played. So, and if you don't buy that, I mean, I was listening to the Pro Football Focus college football show earlier today, and I mean, they just for 10 minutes rattled off stat after stat after stat about how well this defense is grading out. Texas Tech has the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th best defensive players in the country right now. They're only slightly behind Ruben Bain at Miami, who's a total freak. David Bailey just behind him at number 2, Jacob Rodriguez at number 3, Romello Hyde at number 4. Crazy. That's crazy. I mean, that's an SEC quintessential, like SEC level defense that Texas Tech's rolling out there right now. They have the top ranked pass rush in the country, top graded run defense in the country. They spent a lot of time saying, dude, just give Jacob Rodriguez the Butkus Award, best linebacker, and the Burlsworth Award, best walk-on, best former walk-on in college football right now. And even talked about, hey, Tech would have a chance against an Ohio State or Alabama because their defense would legitimately give them problems. So, listen, across the college football world, there is a new level of credibility for the Big 12 this year because of what Texas Tech has done. And it's exactly what we have talked. It's kind of a best case scenario if you're thinking like long-term what this could look like for the Big 12, something that I talked about in the offseason. Best case scenario for the league is that Tech proves, hey, if you get the money and you go spend it wisely, you can build a championship caliber roster, a win games in the playoff caliber roster. That would be a big time precedent setter. And you need a team to start building a brand and becoming a national power that people will trust. And whether you say it's the oil money, I saw someone commenting on the fans in the student section that had the sign like, "Oh, I love oil." They were like, "Well, at least they're embracing it." It's like, who cares? Who cares where the money comes from? Like, are you saying that about where Alabama's money comes from with the donors? Whatever. Drives me nuts. But people understand Tech has money. They have talent. You start to establish that reputation, you're going to get more benefit of the doubt. The Big 12 needs somebody to step up and do that. Right now, Texas Tech is having its moment. Texas Tech is having its moment. They're laying a lot of groundwork toward that. It's not a guarantee that this happens every year. If you're playing the portal, it's not going to happen every year. But guess what? Tech is not just playing the portal. They are doing a great job recruiting the high school ranks, using that money there. So I think right now the wheels are in motion to make that happen. It's incredibly beneficial for the Big 12. But now, what does that mean as far as being a two-bid league? That's the next question that you have to ask here. What does that mean as far as being a two-bid league for the Big 12? So the Big 12's chances of being a two-bid league in the playoff did take a hit this weekend. Some would say it's pretty much gone. I'm going to show you one person who does say that. I think that is crazy, but there is one thing for sure. And one thing for sure is that we could be in for some epic, epic matchups in the playoff. Okay. I'm going to show you the potential for some of that because to me, the best case scenario for a Big 12 college football playoff team has now been predicted officially by somebody. And let's manifest that. Okay. Everybody do your meditation, manifest that. I will tell you about it in just a moment. So first of all, a couple of games that could have really helped out the Big 12's at-large case just did not quite go the way that you wanted them to down the stretch. It was a great day of finishes in the afternoon and then the late window that I really enjoyed watching. But, man, Iowa, you had it. My guys, you drove 93 yards in a driving rainstorm with that offense against the Oregon defense, and you scored to take the lead, and then, look, Iowa went down swinging. They have really good corners. They're playing one-on-one. You defend it as well as you possibly can, and Dante Moore throws literally the perfect ball. I don't know what else to say. It was a perfect pass to Malik Benson. They hit the field goal. Oregon wins the game. That would have helped. Getting Oregon a second loss would have helped. That would have definitely helped. Throw them into that pot of two lost teams there. Plus, Oregon still has to play USC and Washington. There's a possibility they could lose one of those games for sure. Honestly, I don't feel like Oregon's going to lose one of those games. That was a tough spot to be in at Iowa. Driving rainstorm, totally lit crowd. Like, I think that was a difficult spot to go get a win, and they found a way. So, to me, that was a good team finding a way to win in a really tough spot in a wild college football season, not a team that's really sliding. The other one that could have helped is Vandy losing to Auburn. And, it's such a fool's errand to ever put your heart into rooting for Auburn, expecting them to do that because they are just the best in the country, I think, at finding ways to lose games this year. So you knew that they were probably going to find a way to lose that game, and sure enough, they did. Vandy still definitely could lose at Tennessee to end the season. I think if that happens, because their best win is Missouri, they would not be in serious contention as a 3-loss SEC team. You almost got their third loss handed to them right there. Now, Vandy's already behind Utah in the playoff rankings, so maybe that one won't matter. Maybe. But anytime you can knock an SEC team out, you would definitely prefer that happen rather than not. So there are a couple things that did not help the Big 12 at-large cause this weekend. But, really, the main thing is just the fact that BYU got blown out. The fact that BYU got blown out, didn't look competitive at all. The offense, I heard the stat. Until the fourth quarter, BYU ran 3 plays in Texas Tech territory. It was rough. It was rough sledding for that BYU offense. So now the question is, is there any chance that a 2-loss BYU with a loss in the Big 12 championship game, presumably to Texas Tech, would get you into the college football playoff? I don't know, man. We already saw how BYU was treated last year with 2 losses. I would hope and assume they'll get more favorable treatment this year. They certainly did in the first playoff rankings, being all the way up at number 7. But I never trust what's going to happen to a Big 12 team, particularly BYU, once they lose a game. And a part of the reason, I'll get to more of this later, but a part of the reason that I did say in that postgame yesterday was that BYU, hey, watch out and see if are they going to drop to like 14 or 15. Part of the reason I said that is because Texas Tech went from 7 to 14 earlier this year for losing on the road at Arizona State with a backup quarterback by 4 points. So that precedent has already been set. I just don't feel great about the treatment that BYU would get. Now, they would need to play, goes without saying, a much better game against Texas Tech the second time around. That would have to be a close game for there to be any shot at that, like any chance at that. All right. But I would legitimately raise that question. Is there enough juice there? Some of it, of course, would depend on what kind of chaos is there. You are definitely going to want to root for Notre Dame to lose. More on that in just a moment. That would help a ton. But I think a BYU second loss in a conference championship game to Texas Tech would like really put to the test the idea that you're not supposed to be punished for losing your conference championship game, right? Which like theoretically is a thing, but when push comes to shove and you just say it out loud, would they help the Big 12 championship game loser over like a 3-loss Texas or 3-loss Oklahoma just because of some precedent that's supposed to be out there that you don't get harmed that much for losing your conference championship game? I doubt that you're going to get that benefit, my friend. I sure do. Speaking of Notre Dame, this is one of those things. If you're thinking about, hey, can this league be a 2-bid league? For the sake of whether it would be a BYU losing in the title game, or if it's the sake of Utah now at 13 trying to get into one of those at-large spots without playing in the Big 12 championship game, you need Notre Dame to lose. It would definitely help. It would help a lot. And this is the week, my friends. While Navy was unbeaten, there is one hard truth that I have learned in all my years of rooting against Notre Dame generally, as a Big 12 fan, typically feeling like in playoff scenarios, like it always feels like Notre Dame's kind of a bugaboo there. One thing that I have learned is you cannot trust the service academies against Notre Dame. It always seems like Notre Dame is just clocking them, and that happened once again. So I knew Pitt was going to be the opportunity, but here it is. And by the way, College Game Day, going to this one at Pitt. And yes, if you're out there saying, John, what are you talking about? Like your hopes are Pitt, the same Pitt that I watched lose in Morgantown to 4-6 West Virginia. Yes, that is the same Pitt I'm talking about. Okay. This is the ACC in 2025. Beggars can't be choosers. All right. They've only lost once since then. It was a close loss to Louisville. Pitt has been playing better football. Maybe, just maybe, they can catch Notre Dame on an off day here. Maybe. They're 10.5-point underdogs, but this is like Big 12 rooting interest game of the year outside of an actual Big 12 game. If you are rooting for something as a Big 12 fan, it is Pitt to beat Notre Dame. You definitely want that. And that's why I bring up like this question. And I said, hey, some people really seem to be pretty out on the idea that the Big 12 could be a 2-bid league right now. I don't totally agree with this, but I do very much respect John Wilner from the Wilner Hotline, formerly the Pac-12 Hotline. But here's what he said. If Notre Dame wins out, Utah will need a miracle to make the college football playoff through the at-large pool. And this was all started by a conversation about how the BYU-Utah game went. So I'll show you this interaction here. To create the widest path possible for 2 playoff bids, the Big 12 needed Texas Tech to beat BYU, but not like this. Definitely not like this. So look, I agree. He's definitely right. To create the widest possible playoff path, you definitely would have preferred a close game that Texas Tech wins. All right. But really what this comes down to is John Wilner throwing some cold water on the idea of Utah being an at-large team in the playoff and saying like, hey, Notre Dame's going to be a big problem there. I do agree. Notre Dame will make that a lot trickier. And Notre Dame finishes with, it's like Syracuse and Stanford. After the Pitt game. So pretty akin, I would say, to like Texas Tech's finish with UCF and West Virginia. Doubtful that they're going to lose one of those games. But Pitt, maybe so. Maybe so. Now, as far as the crazy potential playoff games, the crazy potential playoff scenario for the league, okay? I just love this. This is as wild a Big 12 playoff scenario as I think we have seen in this era of the Big 12, okay? So get ready for this. Playoff projections, I was perusing through a bunch of these earlier today because as much as I am somebody that tries to stress, hey, the regular season needs to matter, don't get too wrapped up into the playoff stuff. We're in November. It does now become important to monitor and talk about. It's a big thing for the league. You want games like, hey, what are your rooting interests? And that's why I just told you, like, hey, make sure and root for Pitt to beat Notre Dame or Stanford or Syracuse. Pray, I guess, on that one that it happens. But the other teams you should be rooting against, Texas. You're going to want Texas to lose to Georgia this week. Absolutely, you're going to want that. You're also going to need them to lose to Texas A&M. That game is in Austin, so, might be tougher for the Aggies, but you need Texas to lose two of those games. And it's all because Mississippi freaking State couldn't hold on to a 17-point fourth quarter lead against Texas. Thank you, Fighting Cowbells. Also, Oklahoma. You're going to want Oklahoma to lose to Bama this week, and then LSU Mizzou coming up as well. You need Oklahoma to be losing games here, right? Here's where things kind of lie right now. Here are some playoff projections that I saw. I'll get to the third one that I'm going to show you is the crazy one. That's the fun one. That is the fun one. Here's the first I got for you. This is a bracketology from On 3. So what we have here is Texas Tech is a 6. Okay. Texas Tech is a 6 playing Georgia Tech. And I mean, look, Georgia Tech going to Lubbock. I like Texas Tech's chances there. I'd be interested to see what a hypothetical line on that game would be. I think that you would totally take. And if Tech is a 6 and you're talking about that 4, Ohio State, A&M, Indiana, Bama, to me, I'd take either A&M or Indiana in terms of who I would want to play in that spot, I think, if you're Texas Tech. And Indiana seems to me like it would be the least intimidating atmosphere to go to. Maybe that's not fair, but obviously historically and just in terms of the stadium size, like that's a pretty good draw. And then you can see the first 4 out here. I like that Andy Staples does this on his. First 4 out, BYU is literally the team next out of the field, okay, in his projection. Utah, a couple spots beyond that, and then Oklahoma and USC. I've already mentioned them. That's going to be some of your prime competition. Texas is in the field here, according to Andy Staples. I assume in this scenario he predicts them to go 1-1 against Texas A&M and Georgia. They'd be in the field. So you're looking at 11-12. Those are auto bids for champions, right? Georgia Tech and Tulane. So what you're looking for is like, all right, who's like 8 through 10? That's going to be your at-large competition. Oregon, Notre Dame, Texas, and then Oklahoma, USC. That gives you a good gauge right now on rooting interests if you are a Big 12 fan hoping for this right now. Okay, so there's one projection. All right, let's get to another that I saw. This one was from the Cover 3 podcast, I believe, Bud Elliott. Yeah, Bud Elliott here. We'll show you. He was actually a little bit higher on Texas Tech. And when I say, hey, it seems like right now the general consensus is like, yeah, Tech has earned its way. People trust them. They're a legit, bona fide playoff team. Here you've got Texas Tech as the 5 with USF coming to Lubbock. That's a game you definitely need to win. Can't be The one thing about that game is I'm like, boy, that puts some pressure on you, man. You cannot lose that game if you're Texas Tech to USF. Then you go to Bama. That's tricky. Again, I would probably rather have that spot going to Indiana or maybe even Texas A&M. But there, we don't get a first four out here, but you get Texas Tech in there as the 5, according to Bud Elliott's playoff projection. That's, I think, today the highest that I saw Texas Tech. I think Brett McMurphy also had projected Texas Tech as a 5. So I have seen them as high as a 5. I have not seen them get one of those first four, those 4 buys, which, like, right now, hey, that's the way it's going to go. Had Indiana perhaps lost at Penn State, maybe the math on that starts to change a bit. Unfortunately, right now, like, that's the way it's going to go. Those top 4 are pretty well established. All right, now let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. Okay. This one I will bring up for you. Also from CBS, but a little bit different here. I'm going to change around the view for you. Let's check this out. All right. So you can see this. This has Texas Tech as a 7. So you might initially say, well, what the hell, man? Just a 7. I just saw a 5 and a 6, and you told me about another 5. What are they doing at 7? Well, would you take it if I showed you the matchup here? Look at this matchup, okay? You are talking about Texas Tech hosting Texas in a college football playoff game in Lubbock, all right? That is what I'm talking about. I mean, that is what college football is all about, my friends. That would be incredible. When we talk about this playoff and I get frustrated with it and how big it is and taking things away from the regular season, creating something like that would be a total gift from the college football gods, okay? You get your crack at Texas, and it's going to happen in Lubbock. Whew, man. Then look at who the winner would face there. That's in the 7-10s. You'd be playing the 2, which would be Texas A&M. Now, that's not going to be a game on campus, which would be an awesome one to have on campus. One of the games that I missed the most from the, I will say, old Big 12, the Big 12 that I knew, is Texas A&M, Texas Tech. There's a ton of hate there. Texas Tech hates Texas A&M. They were talking about that on game day this past week, right? And I'm like, man, it is so sad that you just have like a full generation of fan that doesn't even know anything about that because it hasn't happened since, 2011? That is such a sad thing. Such a sad thing. I mean, one of the last things, I know this is perhaps in poor taste. Look, I'm just relaying the news here, but one of the last things I remember about that rivalry, if you want to know about hate, was the Reveille shirts that Texas Tech fans apparently made. Go Google it, kids. A lot of hatred in that rivalry, and you'd be playing that game in the Sugar Bowl. That'd be awesome, man. Think about that. For Texas Tech fans, everything you could possibly want laid out in front of you. You get to make the playoff, and then as a 7 seed, beat Texas at home, get the party of beating Texas at home in a playoff game, and then potentially go beat Texas A&M in a quarterfinal in the Sugar Bowl. Dude, I mean, I know you'd want to win a national championship there, right? But if you did that, would that not feel like you'd already won the national title by the time you even got to the semis? That would be crazy. That would be crazy, dude. So we can all pull for that, right? I mean, it does not get much better than that as far as the playoff stuff goes. So I think you get a taste of it there. Like when I say this league, the chances of it being a 2-bid league took a bit of a hit this weekend. I do think it did, and some of it is because you got so close to getting an Oregon loss. You got so close. Well, even if you want to throw Indiana in there, you got so close to getting an Indiana loss, which could have potentially helped you a little bit. And you got so close. What was the other game I mentioned there? My apologies here. Oh, you got so close to a Vandy loss. Like there were things that could have really cleared out some other contenders for you that you just didn't quite get this weekend. And you combine that with BYU gets blown out. It did muddy the waters. It did muddy the waters there. I'm still more optimistic about it than John Wilner, who had the tweet that said Notre Dame's just, if they went out, no chance Utah's getting in as an at-large. I'm still more optimistic than that. I think it's possible, but I do think the chances were lessened a bit. I don't know, 10% this weekend by what happened. I will be interested to see what the college football playoff rankings are going to say, because BYU will be the interesting one there. How far is BYU going to fall as far as that goes? Gentle Brutality, thank you for being here. Let's chat with Gentle Brutality. He says ESPN Radio had a debate this morning. The SEC getting 6 bids, yet made a statement that Texas Tech is the only college football playoff caliber team from the Big 12. Is the SEC 6 times better? I would say no. Let's go look at, let me pull up the SEC standings here and start comparing some of these teams as we come down. Like, look, I know I get labeled as like total SEC hater and whatever. I acknowledge the SEC is the best conference in college football. I do believe that, even though they haven't won the national title the last 2 years. Like, when you're talking about the most good quality teams, I think the SEC has the best depth in its conference. Okay. And they have a handful of teams that are good enough, I think, to win a national championship. Like, full stop. I will give you that. The argument has always been, last year, at least, it did not deserve overly preferential treatment, and it did not get that, and it drove the SEC nuts. You got to go earn it. Well, I mean, right now, the league does look pretty good, okay? Texas A&M, Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss. I mean, that list right there, those are playoff teams, full stop, full stop. I think those teams can win a national championship. They have earned it. They deserve that, so there you're at 4. Texas, I think, is more debatable, especially because of how we've seen them struggle with, like, Kentucky and Mississippi State. Texas is more debatable. Oklahoma, more debatable. Vandy, more debatable. So if you're talking about 2 of those 3, like, are they 6 times better than the Big 12 there? Like, if we're in the Texas, Oklahoma, Vandy category of the league, I think that's where you start to bring in Utah, BYU, maybe a Cincinnati, but like Utah, BYU, I think I would put them up to be competitive with Texas, Vandy, Oklahoma for sure. Vandy, Oklahoma, 100%. Texas still does have some more upside in there, I think, because of the talent on its roster, right? So is the SEC, if I'm going to really examine it, are they 6 times better? No, I do not think that they are 6 times better. I would not go that far. Big Lyman 34. What's up, Big Lyman 34? If we must endure Texas being in the playoff, can the committee at least have this set up, but play A&M in the Cotton Bowl? That'd be amazing. Be great. I would love that. Hell, I'd love it in the actual old school Cotton Bowl, right? Not just play the Cotton Bowl in Jerry World, but play it in the actual building itself. Give me all of that if we're going to make this as like steeped in legit college football tradition as possible. So I'll take it a step further on you, Big Lyman 34. Pacific Northwest Youth, the SEC is 6 times more connected. The SEC is probably more than 6 times more connected, if we're being honest there. And David, so if Ohio State loses to Indiana in the Big Ten championship, Ohio State's still in the top 4. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, unless they lose, I guess it would be the Michigan game. Like, if they lose to Michigan before that and then lose that, maybe not. But if they're unbeaten and then they just lose to Indiana in the title game, yeah, they would still be top 4. They would still be top 4 for sure. That's not really an argument from me one way or the other. That's just got to accept reality. They absolutely would be. Absolutely would be. Okay. Please like the video if you're in here. Appreciate all of you who are. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. Talk Big 12 football, college football from a Big 12 perspective all the time here on this channel. So if you're into that, even if you're not a Big 12 fan, we welcome you. Please subscribe, subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It comes to your inbox twice a week, totally free. 5,400 plus Big 12 fans are already signed up for that. That's a great way to support. That costs you nothing, absolutely nothing. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you're not watching live and you want to drop me a question or comment, I will get to it to kick off the next show. So you can always do that. And if you're in here live, you can fill up the chat room, which looks very, very lively so far, but also click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat if you are so inclined, if you want to guarantee that your question or comment makes it on. So that's the rundown of what's going on the show right now and tonight. But here's this. yet another power conference has suffered the same fate of the Big 12, right? The ACC has turned into the Big 12. I feel like everybody that makes fun of the Big 12 and this zany conference where anybody can beat everybody, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, man. Once you say that, your conference is going to turn into it. And the ACC is there, and man, is the ACC going through it. Going through it right now, dude. Before we even get to what happened specifically this weekend, Miami lost twice in the last month as a double-digit favorite. Worst case scenario for the ACC. They were ranked 18th in the initial college football playoff rankings that came out this week. That's beyond worst case scenario. I don't think anybody in the ACC would have thought that would possibly happen, but it did. Florida State right now is 4-5. Clemson right now is 4-5. Both teams sub 500. A sign of the times this past weekend. Florida State Clemson, if you wanted to watch that, it was on the ACC network. Florida State Clemson, marquee matchup of this conference. You had to watch it on ACC network because that's where things are at right now. Now this week. So you're looking at, all right, well, coming in, I mean, Louisville, actually, I would have said, like, Louisville's got to win at Miami. They only have one loss, and it was a 3-point loss to Virginia, who had also been having an excellent season. Louisville seems like that's a team that maybe could get into the mix in terms of being an at-large possibility here for the league. Well, Louisville lost to 5-4 Cal on the final play of overtime on Saturday. I mean, I watched the end of that game. Great finish. Respect to those two teams for that. But Louisville has to kick a field goal to start overtime. Long field goal, too. Like a 46-yarder. Kid hits it. Then they have Cal down to 4th and goal from the 3. And Cal decides to go for it, man. Justin Wilcox, stones of steel, decides to go for it on 4th and goal from basically the 3. I mean, a long 2/3 yards that they need. And it was pretty simple, man. They ran a little whip route with their receiver. He ran a great route. They turn it into a little short dink and dunk touchdown pass, and Louisville down. Horrible result for the ACC. Horrible result. I brought up Virginia, right? Virginia only had one loss. It was a non-conference loss to NC State. Virginia goes down at home to Wake Forest. Now, I know I say Wake Forest a little bit like, oh, it's just Wake Forest. Wake Forest is actually solid this year. Jake Dickert is doing a good job at Wake Forest. I think that's his first year there, right? Like, Wake is respectable. Absolutely. So I don't mean that really derisively toward Wake Forest, okay? But that's not a loss that Virginia wanted to pick up for the ACC's sake. Like, now if you're thinking about Virginia being some kind of at-large, not a chance. Virginia's got 2 losses. It's to NC State and Wake Forest. Virginia, you can cross them off that list. So, I mean, this looks completely like a one-bid league right now. I would say, it's like, okay, well, Georgia Tech is sitting there with 1 loss. Does Georgia Tech turn into a possibility of being there are so many teams in the ACC right now. I'll bring up the standings here to show you. Is it possible that Georgia Tech would get left out on a tiebreaker and then they could go beat Georgia to end the year? And maybe that's like a 1-loss at-large team. From the research that I did today, I believe Georgia Tech controls its own destiny right now, i.e., if they win out, they would be in the ACC championship game. And then you're talking about, all right, does a 2-loss ACC runner-up Georgia Tech get in, even if they lost the ACC title game? I definitely doubt it. But here's what you got here. I mean, you're looking at it's like, okay, Georgia Tech, Virginia, Pitt, SMU still hanging around there with a chance to maybe get to the ACC championship game. And then on the outside looking in now, Louisville and Miami. Duke still in the mix. At 5-4, Duke is in the mix. Crazy. That's the ACC this year. And that's where I say everybody who takes a little bit of a shot looks down at the Big 12 for being this goofy, zany league. Everybody can beat everybody. Where the ACC, we've got these big, bad brands in Miami, Florida State, Clemson. How's that working out right now? It's not working out great. It's not working out great. And this feels like the ACC being in a similar type of position to what the Big 12 was going through last year. Okay. So ACC, I didn't specifically wish this on you. I do think it is kind of a good thing for the Big 12 to be this year standing on much more solid footing than the ACC is when it comes to the playoff. But I'm just pointing out the reality here. That was not a good weekend. Not a good weekend for ye old ACC. As David says, ACC and Big 12 will enjoy the SEC going to 9 conference games. Yeah, it would. I mean, look, if it eliminates some of this playing Norfolk State in the depths of November, that would sure be great. That would sure be great. The old SEC special here toward the end of the season. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Everybody who's here, thank you. To those of you who are hanging out here tonight, we're going to get to these rankings in just a moment, but do subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com. Subscribe to Open for Business. Obviously, if you're here, if you're listening on an audio platform, if you rate and review, that is very helpful to me. I appreciate that immensely. So I've got a couple of rankings for you. But we got to ask this question. Will BYU drop below Utah anywhere? I know that sounds like a crazy question. It sounds totally asinine, okay? But based on past voter behavior, I feel like it's a question we have to ask this week, okay? BYU lost by 22 at Texas Tech. I assume you know that by now, 29-7. Go back and listen to the live stream that I did on Saturday right after the game if you want more in-depth thoughts on that game. Now, I said on that live stream, BYU, don't be shocked if they drop to like 14 after this, okay? I said that I was not thinking about where Utah was at all in the rankings. It was based solely on the fact that earlier this year when Texas Tech went on the road to play the defending Big 12 champs with a backup quarterback and lost by 4, they dropped from 7 to 14. So we have seen a precedent, and that is the Texas Tech team that I just talked about earlier tonight is the team that has garnered legitimate respect. People are buying. People have accepted that Texas Tech is a legitimate playoff entity, and that is that team, okay, playing with its backup quarterback. So now BYU goes and gets smoked by 22 playing with starting quarterback Bear Bachmeier. What could happen? That was my thought process. I was not thinking, hey, Utah's at 13 in the college football playoff rankings right now. So if I say 14, that's really striking up quite a controversy there. Would BYU fall below Utah? That was, I promise you, that was not intentional. Okay. But I did feel the need to address that a little bit, especially as Utah Twitter, at least some corners of it, have been pushing the narrative for 2 weeks now. Like, oh, hey, Utah is actually the best team in the Big 12. As ridiculous and crazy as that sounds, right? But, I mean, you do have the computers that love them, right? SP Plus having them in the top 6 and just 2 spots behind Texas Tech, like very close there. A lot of these computer numbers love Utah because they're beating everybody by 30 plus, literally. When they win games, they win by 30 plus. So that's been out there. That was not meant to be playing into all that. I promise you, I promise you, I promise you. And I realize how crazy it sounds to even like bring this up, man, because if you're at tail of the tape right now, okay, tail of the tape, BYU has 1 less loss than Utah. BYU also has a head-to-head win over Utah. And if we're even comparing the loss to Texas Tech, right, the common denominator loss that they have, Utah lost by 24 at home to Texas Tech when Tech had to play with its backup quarterback. BYU lost by 22 on the road playing against Texas Tech's starting quarterback. Okay. So there's like, it's just check. BYU's got the checks. So how could you possibly justify BYU being below Utah? You really can't. Okay. You can't. So I will be interested to see how far BYU does actually drop. Utah being there puts a legitimate like floor on it because the committee can't do that, man. Right? I mean, right? Like they can't. You can't. I don't know. They would be going with good luck to Mac Rhodes, playoff selection committee chair from Baylor. Good luck to him trying to explain that away if that actually happens. But I think that does put a legitimate floor on it. And if you're curious what the AP poll did, they came somewhat close here. but not all the way. Now, they also had Utah at 17, so the AP poll had, because of what they did last week, a little more flexibility in what they could do in terms of punishing BYU for this loss. So BYU drops to 12, which actually, I mean, BYU staying ahead of Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, and Utah. Hey, I'll take that. I know it's frustrating to see BYU behind a trio of 2-loss teams in Notre Dame, Texas, and Oklahoma. I think you can just take one look at those brands and be like, well, I see why this happens. Those are 3 of the most powerful brands in the sport, but it is what it is. You're still 3 spots ahead of Utah. Okay, 3 spots ahead of Utah. Utah ahead of Miami. I like that. Anyway, the AP poll did not go down that road. All right. Thankfully, I am able to share that with you, that the AP poll did not go down that infuriating road. But what about my power rankings? What about the Open for Business Big 12 power rankings here? Okay. Let's check that for you. I have that answer for you. BYU is not behind Utah. There's a surprise. You can see it on the graphic there. Texas Tech jumps into the number 1 spot definitively by handing BYU its first loss of the season. Not changing anything there at 3 and 4. Utah, Cincinnati. That makes a lot of sense. Arizona State sliding up. TCU, dude. This is where I'll get into a little bit more of the rest of the Big 12 weekend. The most disappointing team of the week to me. How, TCU? How? I come on here every week and say, TCU frustrates me watching them because I feel like they should be so much better than they are. And what did TCU do on Saturday to take it with everything on the line? Still definitely involved in the Big 12 title race. There are tiebreaker scenarios where they could get in if they win that game. TCU has an 11-point lead in the 4th quarter against a free-falling Iowa State team, a team that has no reason to believe in itself in a clutch moment coming down the stretch in the 4th quarter. They've lost 4 straight, down 6 of 11 starters on defense. Rocco Becht is having trouble completing anything. He finished the game 9 of 24. 9 of 24. Okay. And you find a way to blow the 11-point lead and lose the game at home. Like, that to me is like Sonny Dykes football in a nutshell. I understand he played for a national championship. Everything since then, that was such a game that's emblematic of Sonny Dykes TCU football. They are pretty damn talented. But, bro, how do you do that? Well, I'll tell you how you do that. TCU turned it over 3 times. They gave up a punt return touchdown, and they missed a field goal. That's how you do it. And I feel like some kind of craziness is happening every single TCU game like that. You know, I mean, the K-State game, it's a bunch of Josh Hoover turnovers and a ball that he throws behind the line of scrimmage, down the line, out wide, that, you know, gets picked up and run back in for a touchdown. There's always some shenanigans. There are always shenanigans. Hey, kudos to Iowa State. They battled through. I will give them some credit for doing that, man. They have not quit. They have not quit. And credit to Matt Campbell for that. But that felt an awful lot like TCU just handing. I mean, TCU's driving to tie or take the lead and then fumble late in the game. I mean, it's just, that's how it goes. I do want to say here, Arizona moves up to number 7, a spot in front of TCU. Congrats to Arizona. I was a little hard on Arizona early in the year. They're now bowl eligible at 6-3. Now, Arizona could definitely, I mean, the last 3 games that they have are all losable. I would say at least, you know, 2 of the 3 are winnable. Maybe Cincy's winnable too. Maybe I should just say 3 of 3. They have to go to Cincy though. But they have at Cincy, Baylor, and at Arizona State. That's not an easy end to the schedule, and I think there's a ton of variance in what Arizona could be. They could be 6-6. You know, maybe you can squint and see 9-3 out of that too. A lot of variance. But either way, I'm happy for Brent Brennan in Arizona to be here. It seems like a lot of people really like that guy. By all accounts, seems to be a good dude. And Noah Fafita is the one also that I'm just thrilled for. Noah Fafita is a tough SOB. You've got to respect him for sticking it out this year. When Tetaroa McMillan left, a lot of guys transferred. He stuck it out, and things have gone pretty well. He has quietly had one of the best seasons for a quarterback in the Big 12. This was not his best day against Kansas. He got sacked 5 times and was held 100 yards below his season average. Only threw for 158 yards, but they found a way. KU's defense had not been very good this year. They actually played one of their better games, but man, I know the story on the other side here. Kansas down at 12. KU fans are irate with Lance Leipold for finding a way to lose another one-score game. Kansas is 3-9 in one-score games the last 2 years. Last year, brutally disappointing with all the talent that they had back. Devin Neal, those receivers, Jalen Daniels, and they go 5-7. This year, they've struggled a lot in the one-score games. He also got blown out by K-State. Temperature on Lance Leipold and Lawrence right now, people are pretty hot. People are pretty hot about it. And look, this one, I get it. I mean, Lance Leipold made a pretty indefensible decision to kick a field goal on 4th and 2, a 30-yard field goal to go up 6. It's a 3-point game with 2:39 left. You've got 4th and 2. Basically, you get the first down, you win the game, and he kicks a field goal. Now, I did see Michael Swain, who covers Kansas, said that Jalen Daniels had been like pulled off the field, I guess by those that are like looking up top for like a medical reason, and he wouldn't have been able to play the next play. I was seeing at least some questioning about like if you take a timeout, can he come in the next play? So maybe there is something there where you should, I guess, cut Lance Leipold a little bit more slack. But that, I don't know, even if that's the case, they use like a wildcat package with Cole Ballard and let him run the ball. Go get 2 yards. The field goal doesn't do you much good anyway. And then guess what? You get what you deserve for that decision, and the field goal is missed anyway. And then Arizona drives down and wins anyway. Little recap of the Big 12 weekend there. Shout out to West Virginia, moving up to 13 after another win. They've got 4 wins on the season now. Seems like West Virginia's, maybe figuring some things out a bit here at the end of year 1 for Rich Rod. At least providing a bit of optimism heading into next season. They'll get like the ultimate, screw it, let's go give it a shot test at the end of the year against Texas Tech at home. Tech's got to go to Morgantown before they finish the season. So anyway, there you go. There's your Big 12 power rankings for the week. Some thoughts on what we saw in Big 12 football this past week. Let's check one more super chat here from Pacific Northwest Ute. He says, yes, BYU has the checks. Remember, I said BYU has check over Utah in terms of resume right now. Pacific Northwest Ute says, yes, but BYU has the checks from many donors. # no oil. # no oil. All right. So it's not like Tech. BYU is not going to embrace the oil industry is what you're telling me there for where they are obtaining their currency. You make me laugh, Pacific Northwest Ute. Thank you, my friend. Okay, guys, one last reminder. Please do like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. None of that costs you any money. It would really help me out if you rate and review on the audio platforms if you're listening there, which, by the way, you can find this wherever you listen to your podcast now. That is also very helpful, especially in getting the word out on the audio platforms for the show. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it, guys. It's been a fun weekend chatting with you. If you missed the live stream immediately after the BYU-Tech game and you want a little more like an in-depth dive into what transpired in that game, then go check that out here on the channel or in your podcast feed. So with that being said, thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. I hope you have a wonderful start to your week, and I will talk to you all soon.